Hello, my name is Helen Reddy and today I'll show you how to sear fish. The fish I chose for this video is a red snapper, but the same technique applies to all finfish. First, let's check the fish skin for scales. Rub the dull part of your knife over the entire skin from the tail to the head. If you encounter any scales, scrape them off. A few scales are normal, but if you encounter too many, you might want to have a friendly chat with your fishmonger. If you have a few stubborn scales, just rip them off with your fingers. Once the skin is completely scaled, we're ready to portion the fillet. To deal with the problem of overcooking the tail and belly of the fish, let's cut them off so that we can remove them from the skillet earlier. First cut off the tail, then run your hand from the head to the tail of the fillet, feeling for pin bones. They are located around the bloodline, which is the darker looking flesh. If you don't feel any, the fishmonger has removed them. If you do, sectioning your fillet is a great opportunity to cut them out. Sure, you're wasting a tiny bit of the flesh, but the eating experience will be much more pleasant. Here is our row of bones. If the pieces end up too long, you can portion them. The curling of the fish during searing is a problem I've encountered with red snapper, all different kinds of bass, and sometimes even bluefish. This happens because the skin tightens when it hits the heat. The best way to deal with it is to score the skin before cooking. Take a very sharp knife and slash the skin diagonally. Diagonal direction is very important. This prevents the skin from having a good enough grip on the flesh in order to warp it. If you slash side to side, the skin will still warp the fillet. If you cut through the flesh a bit, don't panic and try to make the next slash more shallow. Ideally, you want to cut through the flesh as little as possible. Make sure your slashes are not only in the middle of the fillet, but go all the way to the edges. By the way, please do this on a cutting board instead of holding the fish in your hand the way I'm doing here. It's a lot safer. Unfortunately, I have already washed my cutting board and, well, occasionally I need to show you what not to do, right? This technique is not necessary for the fish from the salmon and trout family since they don't tend to curl up. But it never hurts, so if you're dealing with an unfamiliar fish that you'd like to sear with the skin, I suggest you score it. If you don't want the fish to stick, you need to choose the right kind of skillet. Only the most sturdy fish like tuna and swordfish will not stick in a stainless steel skillet. For the rest of the finfish, you need to choose a non-stick skillet or a well-seasoned cast iron skillet. Let's set our pan over medium-high heat and add about a tablespoon of oil. I'm using grapeseed oil because it has a high smoking point. So does safflower oil, but you can use the fat of your choice. If there is any moisture on your fish, it will steam, not brown, so wipe everything off, including the marinade if you used it. I actually think that marinades are rarely necessary for seared fish. Oh, and don't wash your fish, it will only make it wet. Take 2 paper towels and gently press the fish between them until it's no longer glistening. Right before putting the fish in the skillet, sprinkle with salt and pepper on the skin side, the sides of thick fillets, and the flesh side. When the oil is shimmering, place your fish in the skillet skin side down and leave it alone. No moving, no tinkering for a couple of minutes. If the oil is smoking too much, lower the heat a bit. Don't forget to fill in the empty spots with carrot planks or some other low moisture vegetable if you don't want to set off your fire alarms. Well, and crowding the skillet is the cardinal sin of searing anything, but you probably know not to do that already. After 3 minutes, or when you see browning creeping up the sides of the fish, you can check the skin side. Pick up a piece of fish with tongs and take a look. Do it this way, and not this way if you want to avoid tearing the skin. This looks good, and we're ready to flip. Turn down the heat so that the flesh side doesn't dry out. If your fillet is less than 3/4 of an inch, you can finish cooking it on the stovetop. It will take an additional 1 to 2 minutes. Thin parts like the belly need under a minute on the flesh side since they're so thin. The restaurant folks call it a kiss. If the pieces are thicker than 3/4 of an inch, pop the skillet into a 400 degrees oven right after flipping the fish. I suggest you eyeball your fish before starting to cook it, and if it's on the thick side, preheat the oven before you sear. I start checking fillets for doneness when I've cooked them for 6 minutes per inch of thickness. That includes both the stove top time and the oven time. I stick the tongues under the thickest part of fillet and try to break it. If it breaks, it's done. I don't even bother to look inside, but if you do, keep in mind that the center should look translucent. The fish will continue to cook for about 5 minutes per inch of thickness after it is off the heat, so you need to take it off before it is done to your liking. After searing, always keep the fish with its skin up to prevent it from getting soggy in the fish juices. Let's put a bit of sauce on a plate. I'm using salsa verde here. Top it with a piece of fish, and there is our snapper. From Helen's Kitchen in Boston, happy cooking and baking to you!